Welcome to Voices of Hope 2022. This Saturday, September 10th, is World Suicide Prevention Day, which is recognized annually by the World Health Organization. It's an opportunity to create awareness and foster understanding on how suicide impacts the people we love, our communities, and the world we live in, as well as the message that suicides are preventable. This is the second year that we've held Voices of Hope. And while we may shift the focus of the conversation around suicide prevention and mental health each year, as we continue to grow the event, we will maintain our theme, which is hope. Without hope, recovery is difficult, perhaps even impossible. At CMHA, we know that hope in ourselves, in recovery, and the notion of a better tomorrow, one where we all have access to the things we need to have good mental health, is possible. Thank you to our panelists, Warren Kelsey, Ryan Gould, and Brad Rowe, and our guest, Patricia Murray, our host and moderator, Keith Anderson, our Roots of Hope partners, Roots of Hope, the Healthy Minds Cooperative, and Membertou Men's Society for supporting this event and so many other things that we do at CMHA Nova Scotia. And now, without further ado, over to you, Keith.
Okay, thank you, Karen and Aaron, both of you, for the opening remarks. Okay, and my name is Keith Anderson, as Karen mentioned. I reside in Sydney. I am the CMHA Nova Scotia Peer Support Lead and Community Suicide Prevention Lead. A bit of a mouthful, but I got it out, so that's good. This topic, okay, men's mental health with a focus on suicide prevention, okay, is personal to me for sure. Okay, I know the darkness, as I mentioned to many of you, I'm sure, over time. Okay, it's critical that we address it. Okay, and when the idea of focus on men and suicide prevention, came up, I mean, it was a great topic, if you will, to address. I really am pleased to hear what Aaron has said earlier there. Okay, with respect to hope and healing. The idea of the words hope and healing in a discussion on suicide prevention, to bring those two concepts or ideas together is phenomenal. Okay, not that many years ago, okay, even in mental health circles, okay, suicide was not discussed, and the notion was contagion would set in. Okay, we kind of just, even within mental health groups, okay, it was, shunned, pushed aside. So to have a discussion here this evening, okay, with so many people, taking the time and interest to attend, I want to thank you for coming. Okay, that's for sure. I think it's so important, okay, that we, start the dialogue, continue it. Okay, we'll have a good evening, I hope. But I would like to see the conversation continue in some form, some capacity. Okay, I'm not big on one-offs. We show up, do an event, and move on. And we don't do that here at CMHA at all in any way. Okay, this is our second year, as Karen mentioned. Okay, last year went phenomenally well. We were all pleased. Okay. Aaron does a phenomenal, job putting this together. Okay, I don't know how she does it all. But yeah, I want to thank her for that. And Aaron put together some notes for me. Okay, and I greatly appreciate it. Okay, I tend not to follow a script. Okay, but on this occasion, I think what Aaron put together, okay, is so useful. Okay, I'll kind of refer to some of the notes that she did pass to me. Okay, why are we talking about men's mental health, for example? Okay, well, in Canada, the recent statistics, okay, approximately 3,000 men each year die by suicide. That's about 50 a week. That's a lot. Okay, that's an extreme number. Okay. That's one reason, but let's start the dialogue here, please. Okay, and share and discuss. It led one university professor at Simon Fraser University to comment that it's a silent epidemic of male suicide. That's a stunning comment. Okay, it's something to consider as we go through this evening. Okay, and beyond. And further surveys, analysis, okay, and this I found here. There's a whole number of subgroups if you will, to use that term, okay, of male communities, okay, that are high risk, okay. And when you list all the subgroups, it's pretty much the whole population of men, okay, are listed in, in those groups. Another number, okay, and this doesn't pertain exactly, specifically to men, okay, that I learned recently, okay, from Injury Free Nova Scotia. The leading cause of injuries in Nova Scotia, accidents. Okay, we probably pretty much guess that one. Okay, the second cause is falls. You take a tumble. Okay, you have a winter time. Okay, ice and snow at times. The third leading cause, and this is what shocked me really, is suicides and attempted suicides. So the third leading cause of injuries in Nova Scotia, for the general population, okay, including men and women both, is the third leading cause. It was unsettling when I heard it. Okay, it was like I had no concept at all that it was that extreme, that high. As we mentioned earlier, okay, suicide prevention is complex. Okay, definitely. Okay, it's complicated. It's difficult. It's awkward to have discussions sometimes. But as I mentioned in opening remarks, it's personal. Okay, these kind of discussions are a passion of mine. Okay, I think everyone should really turn out. Okay, like you've all done tonight. You've taken the time. Okay, from busy lives, I'm sure. Okay, to attend. Okay, and join us together. Okay, in this conversation. So that's my my opening. Okay, and moving on then to the panelists. Okay, Karen mentioned them. Okay, and I'll mention a little bit more about each of them. We have Warren Kelsey. Okay, Warren, put your hand up so everybody can see. Okay, thank you. Okay, and Warren is a community navigator for the Office of Workplace Mental Health for the province of Nova Scotia. Okay, so Warren, appreciate your coming. Okay, the next gentleman is Brad Rowe. Brad, thank you. Okay, and Brad is a peer navigator for Healthy Minds Cooperative. Okay, the third person is Ryan Gould. Ryan, okay, thank you. Okay, and Ryan is the president of the Membertou Men's Society, okay, which he launched 4 years ago. Okay, so we've those are the panelists. Okay, I'm the moderator, so we're going to go forth now with some questions and comments. Okay, and knowing these men as I do, I think it'll be an interesting discussion, an open one. Okay, yeah, so away we go. Okay, now my first, to kind of get this going, my first question, okay, is even a comment perhaps, okay, and I'll get the three of you to sort of get engaged and tell me your thoughts and feelings, please. There's always a dark horse, if you will, or an elephant, whatever they call it, okay, in the room, okay, and it's prominent, it's impactful, it's negative, okay, and that's stigma. Okay, especially with men. Okay, we are brought up, most of us. Okay, I'll say of my generation, I guess. Okay, and perhaps earlier, or later even. Not that there's that much later, but my thinking, okay, is stigma is a problem. Okay, we are raised, we are educated, we are trained at workplaces. Okay, we are the men. That's the attitude, this sense of masculinity. Okay, and it's a problem. Okay, men don't talk about it. Okay, and we have three men this evening who talk about it. They go there. They discuss these issues and so on. Okay, so I'd like to ask each of you. Okay, and just jump in when you wish, please. Why are you here? Well, why have you overcome that stigma? Okay, and able to communicate openly with your own personal journeys. Okay, what's within yourself that brings you here this evening?
I can jump in, Keith.
Sure, Ryan, thank you.
So as I mentioned before, logging in tonight, it's such an honor to be here, to be doing this work amongst so many great organizations and people on the same level. But another thing that I notice is the support that's offered. So it was one thing to be amongst everyone and kind of sharing my journey and advocating for mental health and suicide and support for men. But being in this field, and just because I advocate and we provide support, it doesn't make us immune to the everyday situations, the struggles. These will always continue daily, every single day. So it's about having the proper supports in place and the proper environments, an accepting environment. And that's what we created with the Men's Society 4 years ago. Was we meet every 2 weeks for 2 hours, and we have a free meal, and we just kind of create an environment that's accepting and that's open to men expressing situations they may be in, their circumstances, dealing with family court, relationship issues, battling addictions, having to deal with the judicial system. So, and when they come, we all often have lived experience. And so usually what I notice is that when a person comes in, they'll initially kind of sit back and just kind of see what the group is about. But once they hear the dynamics and the conversations that are happening, they realize that, wow, these guys, as you mentioned, are going there. They are talking about relationships. They are talking about breakups. They are talking about having your children forcefully removed. So, they kind of sit back and right there, that vulnerability kind of creates that open room and that open energy. So tonight, and over the past 4 years, I noticed a huge shift in the speaking out on mental health, and men speaking out about their emotions or struggles, with their mind or with their emotions. So that's why I find it so comfortable to share now, is because I've noticed a big shift in the with different organizations and people accepting those that have the courage to share their story. So there's safer spaces now. And I'm thankful, again, like you mentioned with Aaron and everybody here tonight and those that are joining, that's what, like you mentioned, Keith, that's what makes me passionate about this, is it's all human connection. So that's why I'm so comfortable to share now, is because more people are going there, and I've been exposed to safe environments. I spent my whole life being judged as an addict and an alcoholic and for my past mistakes. But now I'm glad I can sit in rooms and get acknowledgement for the changes that I made to live a positive lifestyle. So thank you all.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Brad or Warren, like to jump in?
I can go, Keith.
Sure, thank you.
The couple of things for me. Well, number one, Keith, you mentioned about the numbers, like yearly over 3,000 suicides by men, and
yes,
3 out of 4 suicides are by men, and those I just find those numbers start just alarming. And one of the things that I want to find out and delve into, part of our office is doing that, is why is that? What's the reason or reasons? I'm sure there's more than one reason, but also for me, what brings me here, getting more comfortable talking about, those kinds of conversations. Ryan just mentioned it, getting to a comfortable, safe feeling space. But also in my extended family, we've had to deal with suicide. So it hits home for me.
Sure.
So, the more I can do, the better. So that's what brings me here.
Sure. What about the sense of masculinity playing a role, like in growing up, perhaps, or in growing, at the workplace, perhaps? Is that something that's present or was present in your life?
Oh yes, yeah, and generationally too. I speak to older folks, like my uncles and people that were my dad's age, and then people in my age group, and then younger guys. And it's almost across the board, cross culturally. It's, men don't cry, men are strong, be tough, take it like a man, all those kinds of things. And it really seems to be impacting how men express or don't express their feelings and emotions. So that's another thing that brings me here.
Okay, great. Well, it's good to have you here for sure. Okay. Brad.
So for me, as a person who's survived debilitating struggles with mental illness, and living with the shame and the guilt of having that, and not having any real conversation about it, and then actually experiencing that conversation, and then hitting that point where I had the opportunity to share and hearing from people the benefit of that. And so for me, there's I guess ignorance breeds fear.
Sure.
And for me, the basic reality is that, you know, if I don't, and most people wouldn't have a problem talking about, you know, my back problem, or, you know, I'm an insulin dependent diabetic, but, you know, the stigma of having a chronic health condition that's invisible and been demonized. You know, so for me, it's, you know, I'm talking about a chronic health condition that I live with that has taken, you know, a lot of work and a lot of effort to work with, to learn how to manage. And again, I think the basic reality that we don't have a kind of conversation about it, and people are afraid. And quite honestly, after having come out the other side, this is me. And you know, if you don't like it, that's really not my concern. But talking about this, and I use the term normalize, because, you know, it is, you know, I mean, the reality, you know, like, you know, both Warren and Ryan mentioned, you know, when you're sitting there with a group of people, group of men, and somebody starts talking, and then other people start opening up, because you realize that while our circumstances are different, there's such a commonality, and we don't talk about it. So for me, sharing it and being very candid about it is would have helped me. And I've discovered by doing this and talking with people, there seems to be some benefit for that.
Okay, great. Is there a benefit to you, Brad?
Pardon me?
Is there a benefit to you when you do these kind of events?
Oh, it's huge, because I think, you know, giving back, and I think, Keith, you said it earlier today, that, you know, the reality of, if one person walks away with a shift in perspective, or that extra question, then it's a win. And so for me, that's what it's about.
Sure.
That and the fact that, you know, people in nonprofits get paid so well.
Yeah, I won't comment on that one. Okay, I have to plug in my computer. Okay, I've been here and there today. Okay, before it goes dead. So hey, pardon me for a moment. Oh, hang on. Okay, another technical glitch here. Okay, bit of background. I had no power here today. Okay, I had to go to Membertou at Ryan's office to prepare for today. Okay, I came back at supper time, had power, so hooked up. And I forgot to plug in my power cord. So the big notice came up, battery running low. So give me 1 sec, please.
So I'm going to take advantage of that space.
Yeah, please fill the time. Thank you. Apologies.
And really also, you know, mention a little bit about, you know, and actually, I think, like Warren was talking about, and you, Keith, earlier alluded to sort of that societal definition of masculinity and the impact of that. And I think, you know, I mean, we come up with 100 catchphrases.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, for me, at the end of the day, it's that reality of when we hit a point where we know there's something wrong.
Yeah.
We don't have the skills, the language, you know, to share. It's like, you know, it's like asking me to give a dissertation on string theory in Russian. It's, you know, totally foreign to me. And I think that's the thing. Like, and I know like Warren sort of touched on that a bit.
Yeah.
So
no, I you know, connect with the three of you, okay, in terms of, you know, their journeys, that's for sure. Okay, we're all different backgrounds, different countries, different experiences, different areas in Nova Scotia. I mean, different experiences that we've been through. Okay, but when we discuss this topic in particular, okay, we connect. Okay, and that's sort of what we're trying to bring here this evening. Okay, the idea of connections. You know, when I had my dark days, okay, and those thoughts of suicide, I had no supports. I had no way to understand it. I had nothing, sort of, okay, you know, but this turmoil, this angst within myself, okay, and that was a solution. So we, you know, stigma prominent in my profession at the time, okay. So I didn't talk about it, didn't discuss it, nothing, okay, until I had a breakdown, and that really saved my life, okay. So, you know, and for me to share, I did understand why I wanted to share my journey, but I know I wanted to, okay. And I started to, and it gave me some benefits as well. It gave me a sense of confidence that I could share this kind of stuff with people, okay. And it was nice that some people read it. Not everybody, but some people would read it or listen to me, for example, and that was huge in my recovery, okay, you know. So again, you know, thanks to the three of you, okay, for sharing that, for sure, okay. Any other comments, Vern and Ryan, on that topic, perhaps? Okay, why you're here?
Yeah, I'll just kind of reiterate the masculinity and the effects, right? So that was my approach in previous years, or that's what I saw in my household growing up, was being exposed to drug and alcohol addictions and domestic violence. So with not understanding this terminology or some of the literacy for mental health, or not only not understanding the terminology or how to ask for help, but just the fact that, you know, it wasn't accepted in the community. So you had all of these that just kind of, you know, the lack of understanding, the lack of acceptance. So, you know, I wasn't a violent person. I wasn't, you know, so I was always trying to be like this upbeat, fun, you know, life of the party type guy. And that's what it was. That's what led to my addictions. So that was my way of coping. I would just not register them. I wouldn't try searching up the terminology or reading into what was going on, or books, or receiving therapy or professional help. Mine was like, okay, my life is not going well right now. I'm very, very frustrated. I wouldn't be using these terms either. And I'm going to go, you know, find the fellas and do what I do. You know what I mean? Do what I've seen, or what I was exposed to growing up, how my parents dealt with relationship issues, financial strain, you know. So that was my way of not taking it out on anyone. And I didn't think I was harming anyone, but it was just self-inflicted, trying to numb this pain, right? And I came to realize that it wasn't the way. And it took for me to lose my children to child services for me to realize that this is a very unhealthy way. I think I deserve a better life. I want a better understanding of why I'm making these decisions and how these substances have such an influence on my state of mind and my coping. So, and I did a 15-day, you know, it was an addictions day program at the regional hospital here. but that's what fed my mind the knowledge to understand why I was doing what I was doing, the effects of what I was exposed to growing up, the effects that that had on my coping skills. And but not only that, they gave me productive suggestions and encouragement to take healthier risks in life. They said to join support group for men. There was no support group for men, so that was when I took action and said, well, then let's create one. And that's when I started the Membertou Men's Society with the help of some childhood friends. And then another healthy risk was like, okay, well, this seems to be kind of catching, and it's rewarding. I got this tingly feeling inside, like I feel like I serve a purpose and that I'm giving back. And so I like this. So another risk was starting my own plumbing and heating company. So I was like, how can I take these initial steps to create more opportunity? I made some notes when we were trying to log in here, and that's what I wrote down here was like, try to involve yourself or be around people, places, and things that build your healing and build that inner child and create opportunities for yourself and something to be positive about, even if it's the littlest thing starting go. But that's what I did. I created one small change in my daily routine that snowballed, and it created me meeting other people and other organizations. And people were positive about me sharing my lived experience. I didn't understand that. I didn't know the impact. So that truly, really is the real reason I'm here, is because I know the value of people sharing lived experience. So thank you all.
Great. Thanks, Ryan. Warren, any last comments on this question?
Yeah, I just want to share an experience how masculinity, or my perception of masculinity, helped to shape
Great.
my life as a younger adult.
Yep.
It was at my aunt's funeral. I'm one of 7 boys in the family. My dad was a POW, so never talked about any feelings, never shared any feelings, never anything like that, never talked about any of that stuff. So growing up, we mimicked what Dad did. So at my aunt's funeral, which was his sister, that was the only time in my whole life that I saw my dad shed a tear. And all of us seven boys were feeling grief and loss, wanting to shed tears at the funeral, but we wouldn't or didn't until we saw Dad shed a tear. And we didn't realize it at the time, but that actually gave us permission to show some emotion, some loss and some grief. But not before, not until we saw Dad break down a little bit, we refused to show any emotion, even at a funeral.
Yeah. Sort of like when he let his barrier down, you felt you were then in a space where you could as well.
It gave us permission. I mean, we were still kind of embarrassed to be, showing emotion like that in front of other people, but it was so pent up and things like that. But we refused until we saw Dad shed some tears.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Very powerful. Okay. Thanks for it. The next question is I found it kind of interesting. Okay, when it was presented. Okay, that this points kick up some conversation. Okay, so let me have a look here, so I get it pretty much spot on. Okay, there's a common narrative that women are more connected with their emotions, their feelings, and such. Okay, physical, mental. They're more apt to seek medical help for that. Okay, as opposed to men. And men on the other way, as we've just been discussing. Okay, we're a bit colder. We don't talk about pain. We don't talk about grief. We don't talk about all those kinds of things. Okay, whereas women are more apt to. Okay, so what role do women play in supporting men's mental health?
It's Brad. I think this could be a bit of a loaded question, because I think like when we go back to these expectations of the masculine identity, and these societal conceptions, well, inherently women are part of that society.
Mhm.
And, you know, what shift can be made in actually shifting those expectations.
Mhm.
You know, I think, you know, I mean, the reality that I see is that, you know, as somebody who was oblivious to the fact that I was unwell, but, you know, all around me, people were the beneficiaries of that unwellness. And so for me, like the people outside of that who aren't in that bubble with me, you know, to be supportive, to shift that conversation, you know, that very simple, you know, understanding that I have no clue what's happening. I have no idea how to express it. And I was never approached with any kind of real conversation about that. So I think, like, first off, you know, some of the things that I've heard in the group that I facilitate is that, you know, when the attempt is made to explain what's going on, it becomes a fight because
Mhm.
the frustration comes in, there's a lack of understanding, and there's a reaction to that aggressive behavior that shuts everything down. And I'm certainly not promoting, you know, accepting aggressive behavior, but that's part of the illness, that and that frustration at not being able to explain. And so for me, it's the how do we sort of promote a shift from reacting to a behavior to trying to promote an understanding of what's behind that behavior. And, you know, and that sounds really easy, and I certainly understand the complexities of relationships and everything. But I think, you know, again, if we approach things from the perspective of men have to fix this, well, we're really propagating that idea that men are the problem solvers and you have to fix it and you have to live up to things. And we're setting expectations that are challenging to meet because you're speaking a foreign language. You know, like Warren was saying, until you see that, until you know that you're allowed to do that, you're not going to. And when the world is telling you that you have to control how you behave because it'll offend people or it'll affect others, and you reach that point, and unfortunately oftentimes we reach that point where those behaviors control us because they're so far outside of our realm of influence. And so for me, I think, you know, that shift for me would be really supporting that conversation, because I think also in my role as, you know, with the co-op, a lot of the supporters and caregivers are female. You know, people are generally you know, those are the people who are generally reaching out because, you know, a family member, their partner is experiencing something. And so for me, I think, you know, shifting it to rather, you know, shifting away from a direct problem solving to an understanding of the experience of that individual and how to sort of come in sideways with it. Because, you know, I know for me, when people try to be supportive of me, the guilt and the shame and the reminder that I'm a complete failure was so overwhelming that, you know, I responded with defensiveness and I pushed people away. And I think for me, like, again, that piece of, what role would women have in supporting men's mental, again, I think that shift and really facilitating a different kind of conversation.
Okay. And can men support women then in their journey, Brad?
Definitely. Again, I think, for me, my take on support is, you're bringing basically a non-judgmental openness, approaching things without trying to fix, without trying to correct, without trying to assess. It's, just being there and literally holding space.
Sure.
For me, the other thing that I bring to the work that I do is the fact that my role is to really try to support an informed decision. It's not to try to make the decision for somebody.
Sure.
And it's also supporting that informed decision. I find generally people will want to address that thing that's poking them right now.
Sure.
And from my vantage point, I may see like 50 other things that are far more important. But if that's the one thing, then being open to listen and share, but also bringing a bit of an intent with regards to that informed decision. Because I think, one of the biggest experiences that I've had with mental illness was that, all the bad decisions I made weren't a product of me deciding to do bad things. It was a product of me not really being able to see options. And so, to be able to have those options and to be able to, again, like Ryan alluded to the fact of like that safe space, that in engendering a space where somebody is allowed to express. And for me, that means a very uncensored kind of place where, you don't have to worry about the words that you use. You can just say it and then dig in.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Brett. Ron, I noticed you're nodding your head.
Yeah. So, with our group, the Membertou Men's Society, the women in our community are very supportive. And I mentioned earlier today that we work regularly with the women's group, the elders groups, and the youth groups of our community. But the women often reach out and are very supportive because they can often relate to either, as you mentioned, a father, a grandfather, a son, or a nephew that is struggling currently with either mental health issues, addictions stemming from not being able to address these mental health issues, and often, victims of suicide, victims of overdose, victims of murder, men that have gone missing for numerous years, So they've often reached out, and they're the ones at the forefront kind of reassuring us that this is extremely important. Yeah. And they express how proud they are, and how relieved. I've had grandmothers. That's what we refer to our elderly women as our grandmothers, in tears, holding me, gripping me, saying, "Thank you, finally somebody's taking action, and it's somebody young that's standing up to addictions, that's standing up to stigma, that's really trying to empower our men for them to find their purpose in our culture, find their identity and purpose in life, become the supportive, loving fathers and partners in relationships. Healthy relationships is huge. So, we've had women that have joined the Men's Society. They came down and they just said, like, we're on board. We support the work you do. We'll help with whatever we can contribute. But can I be a member? Can I, and I said, most certainly. I really don't see why not. you know, because they're right there at every event, every march that we have, or, you know, like they know that they can reach out when they host events. So we just kind of network, but they were right there in our trailer, reassuring us of the work that we're doing. And even more so in our culture, in the Mi'kmaq culture, you know, we're like, so we had to kind of, we don't really know our purpose. We were unaware. So that's what we wanted to also do with the Men's Society, was to reach out to the elders in the community so that we can actually find our traditional role in our community. And so we came across the fact that the women are considered the lawmakers in the Mi'kmaq culture. The men are the enforcers. The women are they make the big decisions. They kind of figure out what's best for the community, what's best for the families. They make these very important decisions. And when made, the men in the community do what's necessary to ensure that the woman's wishes are met, or that follow that path. So you know, and these are things we would have never known. So that's what we also do in this environment, is not only are we promoting you know, expression of mental health and emotions, but also our cultural identity. And I think that's very crucial. And I think that's where we kind of lost who we are, and the medicines and the healing that we have. You know, it's been taken from us through colonization. But now we're doing the work to figure out, like I said, our roles. And myself personally, I'm the father of 6 beautiful daughters. So I knew that, you know, like I can't start, or maybe I could have, but I didn't really want to start a support group for women. But I knew, like, how can I support my 6 daughters and ensure that they will have an opportunity at healthy relationships, you know, with men or with women. But I knew that breaking the cycle and being proactive by doing cultural activities with the youth and peer support groups, and putting in that work to understand our addictions and mental state, so that we can get the proper professional support we need, and then we can become mentors to the younger individuals, and let them know at a younger age, very, very early on, 3 and 4 years old, 5, you know, very early, that it is normal and that it is okay to talk about how you're feeling inside. You know, you may miss a friend at school, or you may be leaving summer camp and wonder why your 6 or 7-year-old is in the room not talking for, or, you know, like after a vacation, or they may miss their cousin or something. But it's all just really about registering and, you know, how they feel. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to break that cycle and be proactive. And I knew that it was hard to try and convince men right now that are in an addictive state or struggling with mental health. It's tough to give advice, and it's tough to try and, like Brad mentioned, and more, and everybody, like, you kind of almost push away, or you get offended. Oh, why do I need help from you? Who are you to come and knock at my door to ask me to come to your meeting? I used to party with you years ago. I remember all the stuff that, you know, so there's that, right? So we said, okay, we're not going to really focus on that. We remind the men that we are always here. The door is always open every 2 weeks for 2 hours. But in the meantime, rather than sit and just be kind of dormant and waiting for that moment, let's start a proactive approach. Let's start doing sporting events and you know, recreational activities, cultural activities. Let's find out our identity. Let's find out our language. Let's revive our language, you know. So that's the approach, is that the women are always so supportive. And I personally have reached out to my aunt. My aunt saved my life. So if it weren't for the women in my life and being able to go to them for advice, I probably wouldn't be here today. So I'm forever grateful for that. And I encourage that. And it can be an uncle, it can be a grandmother, or it can be an aunt. But yeah, the women in my life definitely played a significant role.
Good. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. Warren, your thoughts on the question?
Well, that was excellent.
Can women
Ryan.
play a role in supporting men's mental health?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I draw on the conversations I've had over the years with men, like whether it was in small focus groups or, you know, individually, and men expressing frustration that significant women in their lives were having trouble understanding where the men were coming from, having trouble understanding why it was such a challenge and such a barrier for so many men to express their feelings and emotions, when the man could sit there and talk for 2 hours about sports, the hockey game or whatever. But when it came to expressing their emotions, it's such a barrier for so many men. And I've had men say that to me over the years, that they find it very frustrating that the women in their lives were having difficulty understanding where the men were coming from. And I've experienced that myself, being asked, my partner at the time asked, talk about this or that or whatever. And like Ryan and Brad were just saying, if the conversation went somewhere that you really were uncomfortable with or didn't like, I would get silent or leave, walk away. And I just didn't want to talk about it because I wasn't used to it. You have to learn how to do that.
Sure.
So yeah, I totally understand that. But yeah, that's been a theme for years. I've experienced with men saying that they've experienced in frustration if the women in their lives weren't really understanding where the men were coming from, not really understanding why it was such a barrier for so many men.
Sure. Yeah. And can men support women then on their journey, Lauren?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like Ryan was just saying, it affects men and women, it affects families, communities, whatever. So yeah, we can support people for each other. So definitely, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I have a dear friend. Okay, I've gotten to know her a fair bit over the years, and she struggles with depression daily. Okay, and in their chats about her journey and mine and so on over the years, I asked her if her husband, how does he fit into her depression and her journey and such. Okay, and her comment to me was, he is understanding, but he does not understand. He's very supportive, very helpful and so on, but he just doesn't understand what she's going through. Okay. And she said, that's just how it's going to be, because they've been together for many years. A great couple. Okay. Very active, doing things. Okay. When she was able to do so. Okay. Yeah. And yeah. So, I mean, he was understanding, but he did not understand. Okay. And that's just how they went forward. Okay. So I just throw that in for a little story that I have. Okay. Yeah, other questions? Okay. Other time? Oh, we got lots of time tonight. Okay, doing very well. Yeah, what we're discussing, okay, we made it clear, I think, from the beginning, we're not doctors or therapists, okay, or psychologists, okay, we're just people have come together, okay, with their lived experience and knowledge, okay, about men's mental health and suicide prevention, okay. So we're all pretty much taking an holistic approach to our journey and recovery, okay. How does your daily life or even your work life, okay, fit into that kind of approach, okay, in terms of recovery, in terms of the notion of suicide prevention?
I'll go first.
Great.
With that.
Okay, great.
In our office, not only in our office for sure, but like generally speaking, the work that I've done over the years, you can't separate mental health from physical health. So one impacts the other, and vice versa. So if a person is unwell, like mentally speaking, their mental health is not well, that impacts all other aspects of their lives. So that's the approach that we would want to take, would be looking at the whole person and meeting them where they are. If a person is injured or not doing well, the guys already mentioned that if they're not doing well at that particular time, meet them where they are. But you can't separate one from the other. So a person's mental health and well-being is related to their physical well-being. So you have to look at the whole person and work with them in that regard.
Okay. Thanks, Warren. Brad or Ryan?
So
yeah, great.
What was this? Is it the holistic approach?
Yeah, how does that fit into your recovery and such?
Yeah, so we like early into my recovery, as I mentioned, when I took that day program, it was amazing. Like I got to go to the hospital, but it was from like 2 or 10 a.m. to like 2 in the afternoon. So I wasn't sent away or I wasn't in a rehab facility. I was in my own community and I got to put in a few hours of knowledge, very useful knowledge with a free meal. They encouraged us to eat well as a part of, healthy living. So that was cool as well. But I got to go home and apply what I learned. I wasn't confined. I wasn't, sent, like I said, sent away to be someone else's problem. I was able to go right in my own community, get a bit of information, and then go back home. And that was for 15 days. So they mentioned, as I mentioned before, like to get involved in a group. The only ones at the time were the well, I shouldn't say only, but the most popular ones were like NA, AA, and GA. And so like I said, okay, I tried the AA meetings, and they were great. They were amazing. I felt supportive. I felt like people understood my situation, struggles, circumstances. They could relate. But it also encouraged me to speak in public in front of small crowds. And so that's when I learned of, or first kind of got the experience of sharing your personal struggles or journey in order to give understanding and support to others. So like, yeah, it was great. I loved it. I was very supportive of it. But the approach with the Membertou Men's Society was that we didn't want to have a group where it was recommended for you to be in a sober state, or it was recommended that you stay away from, I don't know really how the gambling and stuff works, but I imagine it's similar principles, I guess. Like you have to want to change and you have to want to be sober. What about those that aren't ready yet? What about those that are struggling to get off methadone, or that are on other medications and really stuck where they're at in life? Do we expect them to change their ways and to put in some really hard work before we open the door and say, okay, now you can sit amongst us and now we'll listen to your story, as long as you don't go home and never touch any substance until our next meeting? Like I'm for it. It's a great system, but I wanted to take a different approach. I wanted that door to be open to each and every single individual in my community, regardless of their circumstances. So it didn't matter if they were, like drinking the night before. Some may have even, had a bit of booze on their breath. As long as they weren't out of control and respectful of others, I would sooner have them there in our presence having a meal than them dwelling on suicide or caught up in their own thoughts or getting buried or blacking out in their own, like, just so much risk out there these days, right? So we kind of took a different approach to open that door for anybody in the community at all. And you're going to be respected and you're going to be understood and you're going to be heard. And we put all our differences and our ego at the door, so that when we come in there, we have an open mind and open hearts to the struggles and experiences of others in the room. And we often realize that our struggles and circumstances and barriers often aren't that different. So it really kind of, I just really wanted to get anybody at all in that room to realize the benefits of sharing where you're at and being heard.
Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Brad, how are you there?
Well, I think, like my experience and I think the reality of what the system sort of promotes is the treatment of symptoms. So symptom reduction is the goal, and that's the focus. And I mean, I can remember before, addictions and mental health were merged, where there'd be the big coin toss of which one are you going to deal with first, because we're not going to help you unless you deal with that. And I think like both Warren and Ryan have mentioned the reality of meeting people where they're at. And for me, it really comes down to you get to decide quality of life for you. You know, I use the phrase, what's poking you right now. And that's the thing that you're going to want to work on. And I've learned that if you become engaged in your life and involved in that, and become actively aware that you can actually influence things, even a tiny shift can lead to greater things, and then move forward. Like I know when I was at my worst, I was literally, you know, spent a couple of years house sitting. So it was me and a cat. I pushed everybody away. I was dealing with owing tons of money because apparently living on your credit cards when you don't have a job is not the best idea. And, you know, the world was collapsing. I had no hope. You know, literally my only goal was really to find the strength to just end it. And then one day I woke up and I realized, wow, I hadn't had a shower in a week. And despite the chaos that was my life, it bothered me. So that became my focus, having a shower, and having a shower every day. And it was hard.
Sure.
But by being able to do that, the funny thing about having a shower is that suddenly you need clean clothes and you need clean towels, so you're doing a wash. And then, oh no, you need soap, so you actually have to go out and get these things. And then strangely, when you're feeling a little better, you want to do a little more. And for me, it's that reality of, you know, again, that meeting somebody where they're at, and they get to decide. You know, I can remember a social worker sharing a story where they're working with somebody who had a youth who was, you know, sort of spent, you know, 4 or 5 years basically couch surfing and homeless. And they still didn't have their own place, but they were attending community college. And the social worker was really pushing housing. You know, you need a place to live, you need that stability. You know, the person they were supporting was like, you know, I'm going to focus on, I've spent, you know, 5 years couch surfing. I can live like that. That's not a big deal, but I want to focus on school so I can start moving ahead. And, you know, so for me, that really highlighted the reality that, you know, sometimes the experts approach things from a problem solving and an assessment perspective, you know, sort of where do you fit? And what we really need is to sit down and say, what do you need? And for me, the most wonderful conversation is the one where that person says, I have no clue, but I know I need something else. And that for me is the you know, the approach that works, because it's all about them, it's all about where they're at, and it allows somebody to have successes, successes that they defined. It's somebody who to be part of their own lives again.
Okay. Thanks, Brad. I have a question that I came up with, okay, as we were discussing this evening, okay. Brad, you mentioned one of the words, actually. 2 words, two ideas, concepts, okay, feelings, impressions, whatever you may want to call them, okay, gratitude and hope. Okay, life-changing for me, okay, in my recovery and in my current life now, okay. Gratitude, I'm grateful every day, and I acknowledge it, that I'm still here. Okay, and I'm always hopeful for a better day, a better whatever, okay, or someone's just hopeful to get through the day, you know. How did gratitude and hope play in your recoveries, okay, gentlemen, and in your current, you know, how you live your life now? You know, whoever wants to jump in, okay, please.
It's Brad, when I was struggling, honestly, I have no idea why I'm here. Everything up here was telling me that it was pointless and useless, but there was something there that kept me going. And I'm going to sound really horrible, but when I was going to groups and people would talk about gratitude and hope, my first thought was always, I should be thankful for this shit show of my life. And I think, the reality of learning to shift things to away from the negative, and for me, like, gratitude is the shifting that lens, and that lens of, what do I have and what can I do and where can I go? And again, that hope. For me, it really it comes down to really being able to engage and to feel like I'm actually in the driver's seat. And I know, like, now, and I've had the opportunity to explain my perception of gratitude to people that I've worked with. And it's really that conversation about, this is where I'm at, this is what I have, and this is what I have to build on. And this is where I can start moving forward from, rather than that lens of, I don't have this, I don't have that. And for me, it's also that explanation of, I was in a place where you could have given me a ton of gold. And my first thought would be, how am I going to move that? Where am I going to cash it in? What are all the problems that I see? And so for me, gratitude is really about shifting from that dark lens, that these are the problems, and shifting into, the world of the possible, and the recognizing and acknowledging that I do have these things, and learning to really accept them. So that's sort of my spin, because I find semantics and language is so powerful.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Brad. Warren, your thoughts, please.
Well, I'm glad that Brad mentioned the use the term language. Like, over the last many years, I've studied, researched like suicide rates in marginalized communities, and like doing papers and things in university, and finding that, like, I was researching youth, but finding that kids as young as 3, 4, 5 years old already expressing a sense of hopelessness. And my first impression was, how can a kid 3 or 4 years old even understand what does that even mean, and how do you get to that point when you're only 4 years old? You're not even in school yet. And I was shocked, really, when I first started doing that research. So I'm thinking, like, as a society, can we not do better than that? How can kids, preschool kids, already feel a sense of hopelessness, and not feeling grateful for anything in their lives, not feeling like life is not even worth living, and you're such a young age? And I was, it was just disheartening. It really, really is. So as a society, that was one of the questions in my focus group was, as a society, can we do better than what we're doing if young kids that age, that young, are expressing, using language like that? My life is I'm feeling a sense of hopelessness in my life when you're 4 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of, yeah, kind of makes one stop, doesn't it, and think. That's for sure, Warren. Okay. What about in your life, your daily life, gratitude, for example, and hope? How do they, are they part of your life, or do you think of those kind of ideas?
I think I'll echo what Brad was saying too. Like, depending on where you are in your life, and support systems are huge. Ryan and Brad already talked about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, how do you when you're in such a negative way,
yeah,
in such a dark space, where is the glimmer of hope? What is it for people? Some people may be able to find it, but other people don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's where the support pieces come in. Ryan was saying about everybody in the community being supportive of each other. So people have to be aware of that, of course, but also comfortable to reach out. So I think the support system is, I don't think you can overstate it.
Sure. Okay, great. Thank you. Ryan.
So when I think of the word grateful, I'm very grateful to have this opportunity. And again, I keep saying it, to be amongst such great organizations doing amazing work for our communities. I'm grateful for the life that I created now, business opportunities. One thing that I'm really, really proud of and I strive to do is to create opportunity for not only myself and my family, but for others and their families. So with my plumbing and heating company, I'm very proud to have my employees and treat them the way employees should be, because I've been on the other side of things. I've worked for some not so great employers. But yeah, I'm very grateful to be providing that opportunity. And with the Membertou Men's Society and support for men, early on, I remember, I wasn't as passionate about this path, this journey. It was new, right? And really, to be honest, I just kind of wanted to start the Membertou Men's Society, just to have support for men in the community, and to start that conversation into other First Nations communities as well, and non-Indigenous communities. But I just really wanted to start support for men, and that was all I wanted to do. It was really just something that I wanted to create before I'd left this world. So, but before I die, I want to at least have a little plumbing company going and support for men going. And then I don't care what happens to me. You know what I mean? I was just grateful for, that was it. I just said, I want to get support for men going, and whatever else happens to me, it doesn't really matter, as long as I've done that. And then as I started doing this work and speaking to people and to youth and to other men in other communities, and giving back to the community, hosting charitable events, doing cultural events, networking with our elders, finding our cultural purpose, the Men's Society became the exact reason I want to stay alive. The reason I want to be on this earth, be with my family, be with my friends, these opportunities. I developed this new view, this new feeling, this new outlook, this new energy in life. So I will say it again, the Men's Society was just something I wanted to create it before I die. But Keith knows this, it's mentioned in the story, but it became the very reason that I want to live every day.
For sure.
And same with the plumbing and heating company. And I also have another little shop I just opened up, and it's and so like I'm just grateful to be where I'm at, and to be in this role of providing just a little bit of help and understanding to others that aren't being heard, right? And that's what I always refer to it as, is like I exchanged two powerful addictions, which were cocaine and alcohol, for two powerful gifts. And those gifts are listening to those that aren't being heard, and with very, very mindful, understanding ears. And the other is to advocate and speak for those that haven't found their voice yet. So as long as I stay away from these addictions that were crippling me and my spirit and my courage and my strength, as long as I stay away from those addictions, I will possess these gifts that I believe were, I guess, sent by the ancestors. That's what I believe we're doing now with this work and understanding and peer support groups and cultural activities. I believe the work that we're all doing here, we're answering the prayers of our ancestors. That's what I believe. And then the word hope is just my existence, my story. I'm not ashamed to share it. I'm willing to take judgment and opinions from others in a respectful way, but my story is a story of hope, because it's within this community. It's within this community. So I'm displaying, or I'm expressing to people that it can be done. I mean, there's a few times that I didn't even want to live anymore. There's times where I probably shouldn't even be here, just as a result of accidental, deaths with addictions. So drinking and driving is another one. So like, there's all kinds of things that I'm just losing a lot of close childhood friends and family to things like murder, overdose, and suicide. And like, I love the fact that I represent change within community. So I use the term, like, the same streets that broke me woke me. So, these were the same streets and same community, same friends, same place, same scenarios that destroyed my life, that had my kids taken away by child services, that had me questioning my existence and my life, But now I feel that I feel that now the message is out there that it is possible, not only to overcome addictions and to get that upper hand on your mental health and understand it, but setting goals and creating a productive life, a career, setting goals, schooling, things like that, employment, right, with the trades and stuff. So yeah, that's what I think when I think of hope. That's the message that I want to send. And I'm wearing my medallion now, the Membertou Men's Society medallion. And when you see this symbol, that's what I want this to represent. It's a symbol of connection and hope. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Very powerful. Appreciate it indeed. Okay. We're getting close to the hour. Okay. Perhaps one last question. Okay. And it's been kind of discussed throughout the evening. Okay. But this kind of maybe a bit more of a focus point. Okay. Some research, for example, suggests that men who can't speak openly, okay, about their emotions and feelings and such, may be less able to recognize, mental health challenges that they're having. Okay. How important is it for men to learn mental health literacy, such as, expressing your feelings, okay, learning about your feelings, okay, and how to, address them and so on? Maybe do a quick round. Okay, Brad, perhaps to start.
I think it's an absolute necessity. We sort of put forth this expectation that everybody knows all these best practices and the best way to take care of ourselves. But when you're not taught that, and I think also for me, like, the reality of promoting the literacies sort of feeds into that sort of, and I hate using this word, but the means of having some kind of control in my life, because I see options. And so I can have some realistic expectations. So I think promoting it, sharing it, but also sharing it in I guess a common language. So I think the challenge of again, I'm gonna sort of steal from Warren and say it's meeting people where they're at.
Mm-hmm. Warren, your thoughts, please.
Similar to Brad, sure. Meeting people where they are, definitely they have to do that, and it's hugely important. And depending on a person's experiences and whatnot, I mean, they may not have the medical terminology to express you know, where they are, what's going on, but
Mhm.
just provide that safe space so that they'll have an opportunity to just, you know, talk about what they are
Yeah,
feeling,
yeah.
but also, you know, supporting them so that they can, when they talk it out and talk it through,
Mhm.
they can help find solutions with our support, not
For sure.
us telling them what they should and shouldn't do, but they can talk it out and talk it through. And so that in itself can be therapeutic, so
Mhm.
that they can, with our support, you know, find out
Yeah.
solutions on their own, or with
Mhm.
our support, of course.
Okay, great. Thank you. Brian.
So, yeah, I mentioned earlier about the 15-day Addictions Day
Mm.
program at the Cape Breton Regional Hospital. It saved my life. It and it provided tools. Not only did it give an understanding of how the traumas that I was exposed to growing up affected my upbringing and my resulting to addictions, but it gave you tools as to how to get out of that and how to change that, how to tackle
Mhm.
that. They just
Mhm.
didn't leave you with advice in a booklet and say be on your way. They gave you like a plan, right? You created a plan before you were leaving. The difference in this is that I had my children removed from my care by child services twice. The first time I swore it would never happen again. I was grateful to finally get them back. I taught myself how to beat certain addictions just by not being around them, choosing different friends, family, and people to be around, a more productive lifestyle. But I did try to still, you know, with childcare in place, have the odd drink once in a while. So, you know, I was trying to still kind of live a bit of the old lifestyle, which ultimately resulted in me losing them again after I had promised everyone, you know, this would never happen again. Thanks for the support. Thanks for being there. Thanks for taking my children in. I changed my ways and I got them back now. We're all great. But then lo and behold, one drink, you know, kind of led to a little more the next weekend. And then same friends start coming around, same addictions. And before you know it, my children are gone again. And so that was the difference. I said, okay, like this, I feel like I'm being kind of set up here. Like, how come this keeps happening? And how long am I going to do this? How many like tries are they willing to give, you know, before they just cut you off and say, no, it's not working out for you. You're not safe for them to be around. So that was the difference, was that I couldn't believe how it happened a second time. So I said, I really need information on why I relapse. Why, no matter how great my life is going, no matter, you know, how many, like I have like so many things going for me. I had so much support. How did I end up here again?
Mhm.
And so they said, okay, well, I think we got the place for you. We're going to send you and we're going to, you know, 15-day program. You did a urine sample start and go to show that you were serious. And again, the knowledge, the understanding, the patience, the views, the people that I was with in the program, the meal, something as simple as a nice meal. But these were things that gave me strength. And when I came out of that and then went to kind of set goals and understand my personality, my emotions, it was fire. You know, it was absolute fire then, because I had really strong tools. Before, I just knew how to create a lifestyle that kind of represented or mimicked a sober living and a happy and you know, but I didn't really lift that rug up and go deep down and really see why I was influenced to make certain decisions in life. And that's what that gave me. And as soon as I received that, not only did it change my life, I was able to, when the time was right, share this
Yeah,
information with others in the group.
yeah. Great, Ryan. Appreciate it. Okay. Yeah, a few minutes left. Okay. I'd like to acknowledge some people here this evening. Okay. In particular, Ryan, Brad, and Warren. Okay. Inspiring. You inspired me this evening. Okay. I've learned a lot. You made me think. My passion grows because of you as well. Okay. And that is, you know, that's my takeaway this evening, which is wonderful. I love to have a takeaway from these meetings. and these gatherings. Phenomenal discussion. Okay, I'm grateful for the three of you this evening. Okay, and to have met. Okay, I had not met Brad before, for example. Okay, we heard each other's names for years, but nice to connect. Okay, and we hope to do more. And Warren, the work you're doing as well, and Ryan especially, that the three of you have come together. Okay, and shares it openly, honestly within yourself to share. That takes courage, strength, passion, yeah, a number of things that have come together for this evening. So thank you very much, the three of you. I thank Erin as well for all that she has done to put this together, for sure. Okay, Karen for your opening comments as well. I'm thankful. Okay, Patricia Murray, thanks for coming. Okay, great to see you here again. I'd like to thank Sean and Jewel. She's right in the middle of my screen here. Okay, for the work that you provided the last few weeks. Okay, for the work that you've done to help us prepare. Okay, so thanks on that for sure. Okay, I'd like to thank our partners as well. Okay, Membertou Men's Society. Warrants I had trouble with. Okay.
Office of Workplace Mental Health.
Yes, thank you. Okay. And Brad, thank you as well for coming. Okay. Healthy Minds Cooperative. I've heard great things over the years. Okay. So nice to connect here. Yeah, I think that's who I'm supposed to thank. Erin made a point. I thanked our partner. Oh, Roots of Hope. I knew there was other one. Okay, Roots of Hope. Okay, Shauna, thank you very much. Okay.